Sonic Generations began as a tribute to the Sonic franchise, and it successfully continued that way up until it was done. The plan with Generations was to bring back remixed levels from every main series Sonic game. Sega conducted fan surveys to find out which zones were the most loved, but not only would old stages be remixed into 3D, but 3D stages would be remixed into a classic 2D. Two different playstyles featuring two different Sonics would be available. Sonic's classic design would be brought back for exclusively 2D levels. It was debated if classic Sonic should be given a voice. Jaleel White, the actor who played Urkel and nothing else, was the only option considered. He also played Sonic in 3 different animated series, and another weird animated-looking character in this Sonic the Hedgehog fan film. Ultimately, it was decided to keep Sonic mute for reasons unknown. The first trailer for Sonic Generations premiered at E3 2011, and the second one premiered about a few hours later. I was on the edge of buying Sonic Generations when it came out. My Xbox was broken and I was sort of getting out of gaming at the time, so I didn't really want to jump through the hoops necessary to play this game. But this trailer changed my mind and forced me to jump through those hoops necessary to play the game. AKA, I just asked my friend if I could borrow his PlayStation. Sonic the Hedgehog and My Chemical Romance defined my middle school years. Okay, the story. On Sonic's birthday, all of his friends, and even Cream the Rabbit, throw him a surprise party. An evil monster captures everyone, and Sonic discovers that time has been split apart. Another Sonic, comes from the past to help Sonic run really fast to fix time. That's literally the explanation given in the game. From level to level, the Sonics rescue their friends and even Cream the Rabbit. Eggman gets captured and asks for their help, but soon they discover that Eggman and another Eggman, Robotnik, were behind everything the whole time. They go super, and through trial and error, they save the day. Sonic says bye to Sonic and promises that one day he'll be great like himself. Sonic. The end. Unlike Sonic Colors, there are no cringeworthy jokes burned into my mind, but there are little quips and references to the rest of the series.
Totally strange.
No stranger than rescuing genies in magic books or saving aliens in an interstellar amusement park.
It's nothing special, and the story was just created to justify what happens in the game. My only substantial criticism of the story is of classic Sonic himself. Classic Sonic should be kind of a dick. Sonic was so heavily marketed as having an attitude in the early 1990s that it circled back around and became a little lame. I totally think that they should have given him a voice and differentiated classic Sonic and modern Sonic by old school Ratitude and new school Chill. Instead, they realized that classic Sonic is kind of cute and walked with it. But they were actually running, it just looked like they were walking because Sonic is so fast. Every level in the game comes from another Sonic game. Between the bosses and levels, over 10 games are represented. I love every level selected, but what I don't like is that they focused more on picking the best level from each game, rather than levels that can come together to represent the whole series. There are no casinos, space, or mine-themed levels, which are all staples of the series. Instead, almost half of the stages are city-themed. I understand that these were considered the best levels from each game, and isolated they're awesome, but they don't come together well. The game opens up before the story starts, with classic Sonic going through Green Hill Zone. Although stages feature one aesthetic, their layouts are completely redesigned to pay homage to multiple levels and offer something new. The corkscrew was never in the original Green Hill Zone, and Seaside Hill represents a ton of the water levels throughout the whole series, like Hydro City Zone and Labyrinth Zone. One of the highlights of the game are the remixed music tracks. I usually don't comment on music because it's not an area I'm really comfortable talking about. I just don't know a lot about music. But the remix tracks are able to feel new, yet somehow really classic and nostalgic. Despite the fact that most of these levels come from 3D Sonic games, the 2D stages feel like classic 2D Sonic levels. Where the classic feeling is lost is with how classic Sonic controls. Something about him is off. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but I think it's because he feels heavier than in the original Sonic games. The originals were so fluid, never stopping. When going fast required active participation by jumping and spinning, the only thing coming between you and speed was your skill level and knowledge of the level itself. But here, the fluid movement is missing. This time around, Sonic's a little bit more stiff when you go down in his ball. I can't articulate it exactly, but it's on the tip of my tongue. It doesn't feel bad, just wrong. I tried jerking the controller to make it more fluid, but no matter how hard I try, it still feels stiff. Most of the game's levels come from 3D Sonic games, so after the first 3 levels, classic Sonic takes a bit of a backseat to modern Sonic. Every boss battle from here on out is a 3D boss battle, and every stage is a redesigned 3D stage. That being said, the later 2D levels start feeling more fresh because the closer and closer the game's referenced are to generations in the timeline, the more similar they feel to the original version. The most similar is Rooftop Run. Although I admit this is one of my favorite levels, it's not much different than Sonic Unleashed's version of it. I truly think that Generations has the highest quality of levels in the whole franchise. I don't think there is a single level in the mix I don't enjoy, but I do stand by what I said about a lack of diversity. But it's all good and it never feels like a chore. Modern Sonic plays how he's played for the past several games, but here everything seems much more refined. Sonic's drift feature now has him turning into a ball, and stages are explosive and more exciting than ever. However, the game isn't afraid to slow down for a moment. Just a moment. This time around, it's more noticeable how slippery 3D platforming is, but that's just because the game actually tries to implement 3D platforming more. In heavier platforming segments, the game will still transition into 2D, which is fine and dandy, but it happens too much. Because of classic Sonic, I think that they should have limited the amount of 2D segments in modern Sonic's playstyle, but that probably just would have resulted in shorter levels, and speaking of short, this game. Sonic Generations' core game features only 9 levels with 2 acts each, and level grinding isn't required to move forward in the story, so the game can easily be completed in under 4 hours. At first, I was kind of turned off by this, but this is actually in line with the length of older Sonic games, and actually the real length of modern Sonic games too. Games like 06, Heroes, and Unleashed force you to replay levels over and over again to progress, and so much of its content is recycled. If you really enjoy the game, there are extra missions that you can do in each level. The extra missions act like both the missions in Sonic Adventure 2, and the more bite-sized extra acts in Sonic Colors. If this game wasn't for you, they don't make a difference, but if you were like me, you may enjoy playing through every single mission. When this game came out, I was craving more Sonic Generations, and Sonic Generations satisfied that craving. A game shouldn't forcefully or artificially lengthen itself. Any extra content should be optional. If a game is bad and has extra side quests that you're forced to do, all it does is make the game feel arduous. But if the game is good, side quests are appreciated. The boss battles in this game are awesome, but it would have been cool to see some of the 3D boss battles in 2D and 2D boss battles in 3D. 1, it would have been an additional way to remix the fight, and 2, it would have given 2D Sonic more to do after the first 3 stages. Perfect Chaos in 2D would be oddly awesome, and the Egg Walker in 3D would have been weirdly cool. The remixed versions of the old bosses, however, are phenomenal. My favorite is Silver. Yes, they included the worst boss battle in the whole series, but they completely redefined how it's played, and it's awesome. Silver is finally that overpowered guy I wanted him to be. Mwah. The game ends with a final Supersonic battle between Sonic, and the Time Monster. It's awful. The perspective switches back and forth between Sonic, and you can never tell what exactly you need to do to beat the Time Monster. It just eventually kinda happens after a completely confusing and frustrating fight. There's no final level leading into the boss, so the whole thing just kinda feels a little anticlimactic. Sonic Generations feels like a newly wrapped boutique version of the Sonic series. And it kind of is. It's a short game with phenomenal presentation, but it doesn't feel like a new entry in the series because it doesn't really have its own personality. So that's what it is, and that's why it's different from the rest of the series. But judging it as it is, it's fucking amazing. The game is so high energy, and because of its length, it's able to maintain that momentum throughout the entire game. Games need to have pacing because you can't go a straight 12 hours of just non-stop action and excitement. But when the game is shortened, it can pick up the energy and maintain it until the end. I know Sonic Generations isn't the big grand adventure that so many other Sonic games are, but it's the first Sonic game in a while to just focus on designing really good and solid levels. Sonic Generations wanted to celebrate this series, and with 2 Sonics, remixed music, Easter eggs, and returning to old locations, it does it really well. Sonic Generations is a love letter to the fans, and honestly, it's the best experience I've had playing a new Sonic game since I've had an adult brain. Hey, what's up? Thanks for watching. If this is your first video of mine, please consider subscribing to stay up to date with what I'm posting. If you want to stay up to date with me, please consider following me on social media. Links, as always, are in the description. Other than that, thank you for watching. Have a good day. I appreciate you.